Violence in Britain. It's not murder, it's not rape. It's this. Friday or Saturday night in a city centre. The pubs have just closed. A young man, often drunk, hits another man. This programme will look at what lies behind this kind of violence. To understand the state of mind which leads to fights like this, we asked psychologist Oliver James to interview a number of men at length to get a picture of their feelings and motivations. A typical fight was described by Pete.
Like my mate from Belfast one night, it was St Pat's night, and we'd been to the pub, standing on a street corner, and these two sort of older blokes, mid-20s, were just standing there staring at us, you know. And he was saying, look, I'm going to have to do something in a minute, you know, we're going to have to get involved here. And I was saying, oh, no, you know, don't fancy that. And in the end, he got annoyed with him, sort of took his sheepskin off and went over there, reverted to his Belfast accent and said, what are you fucking looking at? And one of them went to swing a punch at him. And immediately I was over there, you know. I sort of jumped up in the air and aimed a kick roughly at the bloke's chin. And then spun down. And we just had him up against the wall. And
you hit his chin?
Sort of, I caught him about there.
Right.
Swung back in surprise. And the next thing I know, Gordon had his enemy, his assailant, was like, he had him up against this wall, just beating him up pretty badly. And I was doing pretty similar, you know, and they were dragging him about in the middle of the road.
What caused that fight to break out? This is Pete's view.
I said something derogatory about that and then just stood about 5-10 yards away staring, you know, really menacing looking.
In Pete's world, when somebody says something derogatory, it is acceptable to respond with violence. Most of the violence we deal with in this programme is committed by men who feel the same way as Pete. So what are the rules by which they operate?
Obviously, if you front somebody and the other fella don't back down, you can have a fight, aren't you? Fortunately, but that is how it works.
To these men, there's a lot at stake in confrontations like this.
I've never backed down, literally, to anybody. I've never bit anyone's beck and call, ever.
Fronting people is like a way of, well, it is a way of looking after yourself, isn't it?
If you don't front people, if someone's had a go at you, whether they've had a go at a wife or your kids or anything, if you don't front that person, they just shred all over you.
You're not going to get nowhere without it. Like, people are just going to push you around or whatever for the rest of your life. You don't want that, do you?
If they come up to me and fronted me, then I'd front them back.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, if they come up to me and said that...
It's pride. You're not going to swallow your pride, are you?
That's right. If they wanted to fight, that's it. You've got to have a fight with them, haven't you? Because you're not going to back down and walk out the pub with your fucking tail between your legs, are you?
Pride, you've got to keep your pride, haven't you?
What this is all about is defending manliness. Violence is the final defence. And that was part of the case in the fight Pete described earlier.
There's all this pressure on us, like, you know, just kind of do the macho thing.
Not only is physically a violent behavior tolerated in many circumstances, but is sometimes encouraged and even required. Required, for example, in order to show your manliness, in order to vindicate yourself against some kind of general verbal assault about your mother or your family or some part of your personality. And so the encouragement of violence, rather than the encouragement of discussion, is part of the ways in which to solve these personal and interpersonal conflicts.
The sort of insult to manliness that can provoke violence often relates to the invasion of territory or property. Property can include women.
Say I took my old woman out, right, and I took her to a different place from down here, right? So I took her to a disco and all that, where I don't know no one. There's always people there, 4 geezers there, always ready to like have a touch her up on all this just to start a bit of trouble, you know? And you can't just walk away and say, I ain't going to do nothing, you've got to have a go back at them. You know, just because how can you go in with the old woman when they touched her up and all that, and just go home, back to bed, like, you think you're nothing. So you've got to have a go back at them and say something to them. And that's when it starts and all that, you know.
It's like if people coming to this pub, like 3 or 4 geezers and started acting as if they own the world or whatever, we wouldn't just stand there and laugh at them, so. Even now, like, one of us would probably say something. I mean, it all happens in all over the pubs, isn't it? Any pub you go to.
When I walk into a pub, I've got an habit of looking at people. Not that I literally mean anything, but I do just sort of look around the pub and I might be staring at someone. You know, that is literally how it starts. And that was the finest of that, where it started and it said, who are you looking at?
The violence that can arise between men who live this way is, of course, worsened by alcohol. Young men compete and confront each other most around where they meet and drink. Getting drunk worsens their sensitivity to rivalry and threat.
The common idea is that alcohol simply releases inhibitions, and the violence that is there can emerge. And there must be truth in that.
You go out and have a drink. Maybe you don't start off to do it. You don't mean to do it, but you have a few drinks, like you want to act Jack the Lad in front of all your mates. Especially when you're going out to a different place. Oh, you don't know no one, but you ain't going to change how you are. You're still going to have a laugh and out with your mates.
Another ingredient is that alcohol makes them lose proper contact with themselves, and that's frightening. That starts bringing up the self-preservative violence.
Much of the street and pub violence that is common today is probably caused by no more than a combination of the kind of masculine aggression we have seen, and drink. And the code by which these men live sets limits to the amount of violence permitted.
I'd never sort of carry on kicking someone senseless, I mean, you know.
Why not?
Because you reach a point where you know, if you see someone like lying about with blood on their face and they've obviously, you know, you've obviously quelled the argument or quelled their anger, they're not going to come back and hit you again. You know, I've never sort of believed in, you know, making a point to that extent, you know.
Because it's almost ritualized, a lot of street violence should not be regarded as the work of seriously disturbed people.
Young men are trying to test their superiority over other young men. They're exploring their masculinity, their sexuality, their potency. I think that we make a great mistake sometimes in viewing some patterns of aggression as pathological when they're actually simply connected with a subculture, a particular way that a group within society expresses its virility. There seems to me very little difference between going out in the rugby field and expressing quite a degree of violence and going home and singing loud songs on the tube train and whatever rugby boys do now that I used to do as a young man. And going out in the pub and picking a fight and having some fisticuffs.
The men we've seen so far become involved in violence principally because they believe its use is necessary to uphold their self-respect and to defend a code of behavior. And, as we've seen, there are limits to how far they go. Some men, however, are different. There's a minority that seem to be violent for the sake of it. These men are often responsible for the most serious assaults, and their violence has to be explained in a different way.
I was hitting people, yeah, for kicking them.
Hitting them in the face?
Yeah, yeah. What was it? I think I had about 8 darts. And,
was that, did you say darts?
Darts, yeah. I know 2 of them connected. Got someone in the chest.
What? A dart that you throw at a dartboard?
Yeah, one of them darts, yeah.
And how hard were you throwing these darts?
As hard as I could. Yeah. But afterwards I felt sort of really relaxed.
Did you enjoy when you hit someone with your brick and you saw their head? Presumably you hit them on the head.
One particular, I hit him across the bridge of the nose with it, and it was just sort of weird, well, strange, watching the nose explode. It's sort of like in slow motion in front of you. That was,
What did you feel?
I've had a good result.
Charlie's violence is extreme and is committed because he enjoys it. Indeed, unlike the earlier men, he has no interest in posturing or front. He hits first.
If I was having an argument with you, I wouldn't say shut up or bang you in a goblet, you know, or just bang you one and go from there, sort of thing. I wouldn't give you no warning about it. The way I was brought up was you talk about it, you don't do it anyway, you know. It's actions speak louder than words. That's the way it goes. That's the way it's been.
Charlie's relaxed and uncomplicated liking for violence is not explained by masculine pride or even alcohol. It is deeply embedded in his personality and, in common with many seriously violent men, may have been shaped in his early years. There was a great deal of violence and rejection in his upbringing, particularly from his father.
Did he hit you often?
Often, yeah. I'd say often.
What was the worst damage that he did to you? Can you remember an occasion?
Worst damage really when we had a fight in a passageway.
What happened?
Well, he ripped the banister out of the staircase and whacked me across the head with it.
Did he do it regularly? Just come home and regularly give you a good thumping?
No, well, he'd done it regularly, but always for stupid reasons. If I couldn't read a particular sentence or something.
You remember a particular instance when you were trying to read and...
Yeah, well, I brought a book back from school. They might have it even out today, about chicken licking, something like that. And he sort of sat beside me at the table and he told me to read through the book. And every word that I didn't know, I got whacked round the head for. And I was told to, when I finished the book, reread it, then reread it again. And that went on for about 2.5 hours.
Soon Charlie thought of revenge. A desire for violent revenge is a recurring feature in many violent men. Charlie began by attacking his father, first with a knife.
What sort of knife was it?
It's a bread knife in the kitchen.
Do you think you might have killed him on that occasion?
I'm not sure. Yeah. I was certainly aiming to do some damage to it.
Did you ever think about killing your dad?
Yeah. At 15, 16, I was going to shoot him. That started with a big argument that we had in the evening. Later on that night, it turned into a fight. And again, I was hit over the head. And I needed stitches. And I whacked him across the head with a hammer.
Shortly afterwards, Charlie went for a shotgun.
I don't know whether it's fate or what. Instead of my dad coming to the door, my mother came to the door. And I asked for my dad, and she see the gun. She started crying. My dad, he come back, he stood behind her. And you know, I was frustrated. Really, I just fired the shot up in the air. 2 shots up in the air and just walked away. I didn't go back for about 6 weeks after that incident. But if it would have been my dad that would have answered the front door then, he would have got it. He would have got it then.
Charlie's frustrated revenge left him filled with violent anger and hostility. But why did his violence take the form of constant street fighting rather than any other? The answer lies in needs that his background created and which his kind of violence met. Violence provided an emotional satisfaction that overcame coldness left by his childhood.
You know, I've never been cuddled before, you know, things like that.
Didn't your mum cuddle you?
No, not really. No.
Your mum was quite cold in that way then?
Yeah. You know,
You couldn't express affection in that way?
no, I got my cuddles from my grandparents when I was a lot younger. That's the only time.
The legacy of Charlie's rejecting upbringing was a deep emotional coldness and isolation, reflected perhaps in his choice of job.
I had a good job. I was an embalmer. You know, that was a great job, that was.
You enjoyed being an embalmer?
Yeah. Great, you know, I mean, you've got no one to back chat you or give you any hustle, you know, because you do your own thing, sort of thing. Yeah, I found that really great. I lost the proxy job for drinking driving. I was gutted.
Was that your ideal relationship with a person, that the other person is dead?
Yeah, there was no one to give me any lip. You know what I mean? No one to boss me about. And I've done my own thing.
Did you feel close to these bodies? Did you feel quite emotionally close to them? Some of them.
Really. You know, in a way, I've been dead inside for a great number of years, and seeing them bodies was nothing really, nothing to me.
Did it?
I've got a good nickname.
Yeah.
And I'll prove that the lads at Millwall call me Dr. Death. You know, that sort of suited me well.
Charlie's coldness extended to his relationships, especially with women.
Did you form any sort of lasting relationships with women at all during your teenage years and 20s?
No. I didn't want to get emotionally attached to anyone, you know, because that could have done my head in.
Charlie was emotionally shriveled. He couldn't form a relationship with anybody, not even the woman he married.
I said to myself a long time ago that I wouldn't get emotionally involved. And I happened to get emotionally involved with her. I didn't like the feelings.
What were they?
They sort of... Well, really, everything was sort of alien to me, you know. The whole chemistry works was sort of gone haywire. You know, I wasn't used to things like that, you know, being cuddled and... It would sound crazy, but I got more kicks out of fighting than I did, you know, being with her, you know. In a way, she was getting up my nose, because she was interfering with what I wanted to do, you know. Besides draining my energy, which I need for fighting anyway. So the only contact I had has been physical and violent. Anything sort of smoocher, even dancing with a bird, I didn't like. You know, I used to go to the disco, I didn't used to dance. I used to stand at the bar and drink and wait for a fight to erupt. Then I used to dance, but dance in a different manner.
Only violence could offer Charlie the kind of satisfaction other men find in emotionally warm relationships. It was what brought him emotionally to life. He needed that satisfaction often, and the slightest frustration would prompt him to go out and seek it.
My wife annoyed me a lot at certain times, but instead of hitting her like I felt and doing, I knew I'd go out and pick a fight.
You go out and hit someone else instead?
I'd just pick anyone, you know.
Do you think that's what was happening earlier on as well, that instead of hitting your father, and I think your mother more than you realise?
I think yeah, you hit a good point there. I used to take out my anger on other people. I laugh about it. I joke about it, but it is serious. Yeah. I've got to look at the funny side of things. Because if I looked on the sad side of things, I'd probably sit down and cry.
You said that you've been feeling dead inside for years. Going out with the F Troop and going out rucking, that was a way for you, was it, of coming alive?
Yeah. And give me enjoyment.
And was the rest of the time you weren't alive?
The rest of the time, when I wasn't drunk, I just wanted to be on my own, away from everything and everyone.
The pleasure Charlie got from violence is usually found by other men in a different kind of intimate contact, in the kind of relationships that Charlie avoided.
And you got the adrenaline going. Was it almost like a sort of almost kind of erotic experience? Very, very exciting.
I'd say so, yeah. Especially when you see certain damages.
Charlie's violent and rejecting childhood created a disturbed man who only lived for violence. Where for other men violence might be the means to an end, to defend their status, for example, for Charlie it was an end in itself, the only thing that made life real.
Really all I lived for was my daily drinking, nightly fights, and the big fights on the weekend.
In Charlie, very particular circumstances directed his violent aggression into an addiction to fighting. Other men turn their violence on their own families. We'll see why in next week's program.